Part 114. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1131. One day later, the door of the secret cultivation tower opened automatically. As a brilliant golden light poured out from the opened door, Xiaoping's figure also emerged in the golden light, gradually becoming clear from blur, and walking out step by step. The secret repair tower. After walking down the steps of the secret cultivation tower, Xiaoping turned around and saw that the door of the secret cultivation tower was slowly closing, and the brilliant golden light was gradually contained within the secret cultivation tower. 1 year has passed so quickly, Xiaoping said to himself. When he was practicing in the tower, he could hardly feel the passage of time. This time he entered the tower and ate the Wanyan Gigzubla ginseng. After that, it took 5 days to digest and absorb the energy of this heavenly material and earthly treasure. On the 6th and 7th days, he integrated the world beads obtained from the bounty. Then on the 8th day, his 7th ray of divine flame was already successfully lit. Advancing to the 7th level God is definitely a milestone event for all cultivators, because many secrets and mysteries related to becoming a god will only be revealed after advancing to the 7th level God, such as training the divine body and refining the natal artifact, which is exclusive to gods of the 7th level and above. Below the 7th level, you can only look up to it. As for Xiaoping's secret mandala, after he advanced to the 7th level God, great changes have indeed taken place, especially the changes in the giant divine prison tower, which are difficult to describe in one sentence. Feeling the condition of his body again, Xiaoping showed a wry smile and a strange look in his eyes. He didn't know whether to cry or laugh. At this moment, in the divine palace in his body, that the divine prison tower had disappeared and moved from his secret mandala, and was completely integrated with his divine palace, inexplicably becoming his natal artifact. It's just that this natal artifact is different from the natal artifacts of other powerful gods. The natal artifacts of other powerful gods require a little bit of tempering and polishing, and are constantly tempered and strengthened with divine flames. However, the giant tower of the divine prison is already fully formed. But it cannot be used. He needs to temper it a little bit. The divine bodies and artifacts of other powerful gods are separate, but in his current state, the divine realm giant tower is his natal artifact, and it is integrated with his body. The process of tempering the divine hell giant tower is also his training. The process of the divine body, 2 processes became one process, and the secret method that penetrated this process was the Mingwangwujian divine body secret book that appeared in the giant tower of the divine prison after he lit the 7th ray of divine flame. If you can cultivate a certain amount of Mingwangwujian divine body, you can freely exert a certain amount of power of the divine prison tower. During the nearly 1 year left in the secret cultivation tower, Xiaoping spent all his time tempering and training his Mingwangwujian divine body. This technique was simply a super black hole that swallowed up divine power. There were still 200 million remaining on this giant tower. With more divine power, during the year in the training tower, almost all of it was absorbed by Xiaoping's body and used to cultivate the Mingqingwujian divine body. Almost no one would believe this terrifying consumption of divine power, but unfortunately, this is fact. Mingwangwujian divine body is divided into 13 levels in total. Xiaoping spent a year and more than 200 million points of divine power in hard training, but he still hasn't even seen the edge of the first level. He just touched a little of Mingwangwujian divine body. Preliminary mysteries and changes. Before cultivating the Mingwangwujian divine body, Xiaoping did not believe in evil. He wanted to see if with his current body, he could activate the divine prison tower. Xiaoping felt that his current body was definitely among the powerful gods. Xiaoping has never seen one of the most powerful gods who are physically stronger than him. His body has been fused with the body of a god, and has been trained and strengthened by the secrets of the spiritual world. His chest is still beating. The powerful heart of the ancient god has also absorbed the divine spring of eternal life. No other powerful god can have so many opportunities, not to mention that he has already advanced to the 7th level of god. But it is such a body that can move mountains and fill seas with just one move. When Xiaoping'an wanted to activate the Divine Prison Tower, the terrifying concussive power from the Divine Prison Tower almost caused his body to move in an instant. His meridians were broken, and his whole body was almost torn apart. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the eternal spring he absorbed came into play, repairing his body's injuries in time, and the strength of his fused divine body absorbed the remaining counter-shock power. To resolve most of it, the powerful blood and power burst out from the heart of the ancient god penetrated every cell in his body, giving him room for buffering and allowing him to unload the power that wanted to activate the giant tower of the divine prison. In this way, he didn't cause a big accident. It was also this moment that made Xiaoping'an fully understand the horror of the giant divine prison tower, and also made him determined to cultivate his own Mingwangwujian divine body, a power that even his fused god body could not withstand. The Mingwangwujian he cultivated, however, the divine body can withstand it. It goes without saying that the power of Mingwangwujian's divine body is undeniable. However, as a result of cultivating Mingwangwujian's divine body, Xiaoping'an fell from his previous position as a big dog with divine power, and became a difficult household with divine power. Just when Xiaoping'an was still sighing in his heart about the difficulty of cultivating King Ming's divine body, the carriage that brought him here had already passed through a blue light curtain and stopped in front of him. The door of the carriage opened, and Shui Lao's face appeared again. "Congratulations to Mr. Cicada for completing your training. Mr. Cicada, please get in the car and I will take you out." Xiaoping'an got into the car, closed the carriage door, and the carriage started to fly again, passed through the light curtain around the secret space, and disappeared in an instant. In the carriage, Mr. Shui carefully looked at Xiaoping'an from head to toe, and a smile appeared on his face. "I haven't seen you for a day. Master Cicada has indeed ignited the 7 rays of divine flames. His strength has improved greatly. It is really gratifying and congratulatory. Although 1 day in this cultivation tower is equivalent to 1 year outside, being able to ignite a ray of divine flame in a year is worthy of celebration for anyone. The Jiao Emperor was only an 8th level person before. Just a god. Thank you, Mr. Shui, for this great gift. I still remember what Mr. Shui said before. No matter what the outcome of the battle between me and Du Yunji is, it will not involve Mr. Shui." Xiaoping'an promised again. Shui Lao nodded with satisfaction. After a moment, the carriage stopped and Xiaoping'an got out of the car. He found himself in a remote and quiet wilderness in the capital city. It was surrounded by mountains. Below the mountains was a canyon. In the canyon was a large mangrove forest that lasted 10,000 years. There is only one road through this canyon and woods. Even in broad daylight, there is a thick layer of fog in this mangrove forest. It is still more than 200 miles away from my residence. After setting Xiaoping'an down here, the carriage disappeared into the thick fog in the blink of an eye, as if it had never appeared before. Xiaoping'an looked at the environment here, and was too lazy to return to Mingyuan building to be watched by a bunch of people. He found a higher hillside near the mangrove forest, drew a few random drawings on the ground, and arranged a few pieces. With stones, a few branches thrown in and a few leaves put on, a natural chaotic 5 elements tracing formation has been formed, and a large piece of mist automatically floated over, sealing the place. Xiaoping'an planned to practice here for 2 days and then go out of the city for a decisive battle with Du Yunji. After practicing cross-legged and with eyes closed for less than half an hour, Xiaoping'an heard a familiar voice in his ears. "Congratulations to young Master Cicada for igniting the 7th ray of divine flame." The Emperor's reaction was just as expected by young Master Cicada. This voice belongs to Maluo. Just listening to this voice seems to have a magical power, making people happy both physically and mentally. Xiaoping'an opened his eyes. "Miss Maluo, come in, this simple formation cannot stop you." There was a chuckle like a silver bell in the ears. A few seconds later, Bilo, who was wearing a green skirt and looked like an orchid in the empty valley, was already standing in front of Xiaopingan, looking at Xiaopingan with scorching eyes. This big formation, it is completely made by nature and captures the beauty of heaven and earth. I didn't expect that Mr. Cicada's formation skills are so great. The longer I get to know Mr. Cicada, the less I can see through him. The more life-saving skills you have, the better. Xiaopingan smiled softly, and with a wave of his hand, the rocks on the ground had turned into tables and chairs. This place is simple and there is nothing to entertain. Miss Maluo, please sit down. Can Master Cicada fuse those world beads I gave to young Master Cicada? Bilo asked. Xiaopingan nodded. It has been integrated. The fusion method of those mythical beast world beads is also strange. It is almost like reciting the words about those mythical beasts in the classic of mountains and seas, telling the place where the mythical beast appears and what it looks like. Characteristics and strangeness are considered fusion. This fusion method is extremely simple and extremely abnormal. For people who are familiar with the classic of mountains and seas, this is naturally nothing, but for those who have not read the classic of mountains and seas for humans, it is completely impossible to fuse this kind of world pearl. The simplest one is the most difficult. I have fulfilled my promise, but how could Mr. Cicada be so shameless? Bilo looked at Xiaopingan with a slightly coquettish expression. Where do you start talking about this? Xiaopingan spread his hands with an innocent look. The blueprint for making a little one that young Master Cicada gave me cannot produce a little one at all. Xiaopingan spread his hands and said, Miss Maluo, this is your problem, not mine. I promised to give you the manufacturing drawings before, and I have fulfilled the contract without any hidden secrets. You can't make a baby with the manufacturing drawings. This is because the secret method you have mastered is still flawed. The creation of the little one does not just involve the secret method of mechanism puppets, but also other secret methods. This is none of my business. If you want me to hand over other secret methods of making, that's another story. No need to discuss. It can be discussed, but that is another deal. The price of learning this secret method is not as simple as a few world beads. Bilo looked at Xiaopingan with itchy teeth, but suddenly smiled again. I find that Mr. Cicada's current appearance is cuter than the cold and indifferent appearance before. Just think that if I suffer a little more loss, Mr. Cicada can you tell me what conditions are required? 1 billion points of divine crystals. Xiaopingan spit out 5 words. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 1132. A billion points of divine crystals. Bilo took a breath of air after hearing this, and then glared at Xiaopingan. Master Cicada, don't you want to imitate that thief who cut the path? Miss Maluo, you are wrong. How can you earn so many divine crystals from robbery? Xiaopingan said plausibly without changing his face. You. Bilo had some integrity, and a trace of angry blush rose on his beautiful and flawless face. Since Mr. Cicada knows, why are you still so open-mouthed? You must know that this is in the secret realm of the spiritual wilderness, here. How precious the divine crystal is, doesn't Mr. Chan know? Miss Maluo, are you wrong again? Where did I go wrong? Maluo was driven a little crazy by Xiaopingan. Her eyebrows rose and she was a little angry. The secret method we just talked about is not the secret method of the spiritual desolate secret realm. This secret method can be used in all realms of the universe, and our cultivation has reached the level of you and me. In this spiritual desolate secret realm, we still can't come and go freely. If this secret realm of spiritual wilderness is compared to a remote place, and my secret method is compared to a precious gem, does Miss Maluo mean that I have to take the precious gem to a remote place and exchange it for some cabbage and soil? So, can't the gems in my hand be sold and priced in a wealthy land? Maluo's brows moved, and the expression on her face gradually softened. She nodded slightly. Listening to what you said, it seems to make sense. It doesn't make sense, it's just the way it is. Miss Malugo, please don't tell me that the universe is so vast. Until today, you have never left the secret realm of spiritual desolation to go anywhere else, and you will never go anywhere else in the future. I want to live my whole life in the secret realm of the spiritual wasteland. Malugo suddenly smiled and said, "Forget it, I won't be angry with you anymore. Do those secret techniques to create little ones really require 1,000,000,000 points of divine crystals? For Miss Malugo's sake, I'll give you another 10% discount, a discount of 100,000,000 points of divine crystals. I haven't thought that my face is so valuable in Mr. Cicada." Bilogo shook his head and laughed at himself, and then sighed quietly, seeing Mr. Cicada bargaining with a weak woman like me like a merchant. I'm really not used to it. I didn't expect young Master Cicada to be such a Philistine, and how could he have the magnanimity of a young master from a family descended from the blood of an ancient god? It's really shocking. Who said I am the most repaying person? If I were someone else, I wouldn't have the face of 100,000,000 divine crystals. The price might be even more expensive. Xiaoping's face remained unchanged. Besides, if Miss Malugo is a weak woman, how can there be a woman in the world who can become a god? I have been accustomed to hardship since I was a child. What I get is the most important to me. No matter what kind of young master I am, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter, what others think of me has nothing to do with me. It's rare to hear compliments from Mr. Cicada, so let's make a deal. I really don't have 900,000,000 points of divine crystals now. When I have them in the future, I will come to you again. You can't go back on your word. No problem, this deal is valid for Miss Malugo forever. Xiaoping knew that Malugo and the forces behind her still couldn't let go of the little one, and wanted to re-evaluate the value of the little one and whether it was worth her 900,000,000 divine points. Jing came to buy it, and for Xiaoping, using this price to sell several secret techniques needed to make a little one is not really asking a high price. That secret technique was the first time he entered the secret cultivation tower and read all the worlds in the universe. What is created by integrating the classic secrets is unique, and teaching it to others does not break the rules of the Sutra Collection Hall. When are you going to leave the capital? 3 more days, right? Xiaoping smiled slightly. I'm not in a hurry. I'll just let Du Yunji wait for a few more days. If God wants people to perish, he must first make them crazy. Well, I will wait for 3 days to see the outcome of the battle between you and Du Yunji. Many people in Sujing City want to see it. In the past 2 days, many experts and strongmen who heard the news came from all over Gigza region. I came here just to think about what a bloody battle between high-level gods would be like after a few days, Malugo said, already standing up and preparing to leave. Ahem, Miss Bilugo, please be patient. I have another deal here. I want to discuss it with Miss Bilugo to see if she is interested. Xiaoping quickly stopped Bilugo. Malugo suddenly became alert and looked at Xiaoping as if he were a profiteer, but he couldn't help but ask curiously, what other deals does Mr. Cicada have? Xiaoping stared at this stunning beauty with pure eyes, and blinked. Miss Malugo, you don't have to look at me like that. I just want to ask Miss Malugo about those rare world beads on your side. No more, it's all gone. Before Xiaoping could finish speaking, Malugo immediately interrupted Xiaoping's words, as if you would never try to cheat me out of half a world bead again. If nothing happens to you, I will leave. After Malugo finished speaking, he turned around and wanted to leave. It's a pity. Since Miss Malugo is not interested, let's forget it. Let the maid next to me escort Miss Malugo to the battle on my behalf. Xiaoping said, and with a wave of his hand, a snow-white fox was summoned by him. When he came out, the fox was extremely nimble, with 9 tails and a face like a human face. After the fox was summoned, it turned into a charming and sweet little girl in an instant. She was dressed in a maid's palace attire and had a bun on her head. With a well-behaved look, She came to Maluo's side and made a gesture of seeing off the guests. Said, "Miss Maluo, please." Seeing the person transformed by the nine-tailed fox, Maluo, who was about to leave, stopped like a lead block. She first looked at the beautiful little girl transformed by the nine-tailed fox with shocked eyes, and then looked at Xiang Xiaoping and looked in disbelief. Maluo was shocked because in her previous transaction with Xiaopingan, she had given Xiaopingan a nine-tailed fox boundary bead, but that boundary bead did not have a corresponding divine mind crystal. Logically speaking, it is impossible for Xiaopingan to fuse such a world bead, but Xiaopingan summoned the nine-tailed fox in front of him. Maluo hated Xiaopingan with a look of itching teeth, but he still had to turn around, sit down again, took a deep breath, and showed a smile on his face. How did Mr. Cicada fuse this world pearl? Yes, is the transaction Mr. Cicada mentioned just now related to this? Xiaopingan waved his hand gently, and the nine-tailed fox transformed into a fox shape again, and was summoned back to the secret mandala by him. I had an adventure in a secret realm a few years ago. I won't say more about the specific adventure. Anyway, Miss Maluo saw it with her own eyes. The transaction I mentioned is indeed related to this. Master Cicada, please make it clear. This is also the face and reward I give to Miss Maluo. If it were anyone else, I would not give them such treatment. If Miss Maluo has other rare world beads, we can be very good partners. Xiaopingan then spoke slowly, and the expression on Maluo's face kept changing. 3 days later, as Xiaopingan's figure appeared at the west exit of Sujing City, everyone around him was suddenly alarmed, and the movement spread like ripples in water. Xiaopingan, who was dressed in black robes, came to the exit with a calm expression, and immediately attracted many people to watch. The crowd who were still queuing up to leave the city immediately made way for a passage, and all kinds of eyes were focused on Xiaopingan. On the body. Ah, that's Master Cicada. Master Cicada really came out. There are rumors that he has escaped in the past few days, but I didn't expect that he is still in Sujing City. Du Yunji has been going crazy outside the city these days. I heard that Du Yunji even issued an ultimatum to the Jiaoran Imperial Court. When Xiaopingan walked out of the west exit of Sujing City, he was immediately teleported outside the city. At the same time, there was a magic barrier flashing with red light outside the exit. Everyone who came out from the west exit, you have to pass through this barrier again before you can leave. This magic barrier was set up by Du Yunji to prevent Xiaopingan from escaping. A group of dragon boat-sized strange fish summoned by Du Yunji were swimming near the barrier. The strange fish stared at the lantern-like eyes and opened their big mouths to monitor the situation here. Xiaopingan smiled coldly and punched out. The water suddenly exploded like thousands of thunders. Purple thunder and lightning exploded on Xiaopingan's fist like brilliant fireworks. They were all caused by the magic barrier arranged by Yunji, and those summoned strange fish were reduced to ashes in an instant. The surging tide and shock waves suddenly spread tens of thousands of meters in the sea water, alarming all directions. Du Yunji, here I come. Almost as soon as Xiaopingan finished speaking, in the sea 100 miles away from his 3 o'clock direction, a blood-red aura bearing the strong and violent brand of Du Yunji soared into the sky. With overwhelming power, Du Yunji the voice also came over at the same time. Ha ha ha, I thought the famous Mr. Cicada was a coward and didn't dare to come out of Sujing City. I didn't expect that he would dare to come and die today. Very good, your ancient god blood, I will eat it today. This is not a place for you and me to fight bloody battles. If you and I fight bloody battles here, it will affect the capital city. If you have the guts, come with me, Xiaopingan said, and his whole body turned into a streak of lightning in the water, heading directly to the west. Rushing away, Du Yunji turned into a line of blood energy, chasing after Xiaopingan for fear that he would escape. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1133. Xiaopinggan and Du Yunji each used secret methods to advance rapidly underwater. Experts and strongmen from all walks of life who heard the news also swarmed in from all directions, wanting to see the battle between the two strong men. And Du Yunji also returned afraid that Xiaopinggan would run away. She clung tightly to Xiaopinggan's back. After almost an hour, Xiaopinggan finally stopped and turned around to face Du Yunji. At this moment, Xiaopinggan's location was already more than 3,000 kilometers away from the west of Su capital city. The seabed here was full of soft golden sand and nothing else. As soon as Du Yunji arrived, the terrifying evil aura on his body, all of a sudden, the seabed creatures, fish, shrimps, turtles, and shells of all kinds in the hundreds of miles of sea nearby were frightened and fled in all directions, as if a disaster was imminent. And those who were watching the excitement stopped hundreds of miles away. They used secret techniques to cover their bodies and did not get too close. They all had a very evil reputation and everyone was afraid of offending this evil star. Ha ha ha, the young master of the Gu family, Xuanhuan Chan, died outside the capital city today. You really knew how to choose a place for yourself. Du Yunji stopped more than 1,000 meters away from Xiaopinggan, staring at him with greedy and violent eyes. Xiaopinggan had a ferocious smile on his face, and the oppressive aura on his body spread in all directions with the 7 blood-red circles behind his head. You should feel honored that your ancient god's blood can be swallowed by me, become my stepping stone to becoming a god. People like you are beasts among gods. They kill innocent people indiscriminately for their own selfish desires, and their hands are full of blood. If you can become a god, the road will be unfair. Remember, you will definitely die in my hands. I will definitely kill you, Xiaopinggan responded coldly. Du Yunji laughed loudly and didn't care. It's ridiculous, the blood on your hands may not be less than mine. On the road to becoming a god, the strong have always been respected, the accomplished have always been the first, and the bones of the weak have always been the strong. As a stepping stone, after I kill you today and devour your blood treasure of the ancient gods, I will take the wine glass made from your head to the Xuanhuan family to drink with your master to see who can stop me from becoming a god. Suffer death. Du Yunji said, his whole body flashed, and he rushed towards Xiaopinggan. At the same time, he stretched out his big hand, his 5 fingers were like hooks, and the 5 fingers were like big guns, directly grabbing and stabbing Xiaopinggan's heart, like a tiger fighting. Rabbit. When he moved, the surrounding sea water seemed to turn into air at this moment, and it produced no resistance to his figure. This scene made countless onlookers in the distance feel dry and their hearts pounding. This is the secret state that can only be mastered by the strong ones of level 7 or above, the transformation of all things. In this state, any surrounding environment is like a part of the person's body, allowing people to do whatever they want. Facing Du Yunji's attack, Xiaopinggan just punched out with a mediocre punch. The effect of Xiaopinggan's punch was completely opposite to Du Yunji's. And as he punched out, everyone within 10,000 meters around him was shocked. The sea water suddenly condensed like iron, solidified instantly, and then turned into an iron fist, hitting Du Yunji directly. Boom! The fists and claws collided in the void, like thunder crashing down. 2 completely different groups of violent energy almost completely turned the sand on the seabed over. The billions of tons of seawater sandwiched between the two were directly hit by this moment. The violent power tore into a vacuum, and then transformed into huge waves that swept across in all directions. Those who were watching the battle from a distance were all shocked when faced with the first confrontation between the two, because many people had discovered that the punch Xiaopinggan used also showed the realm of the incarnation of all things, causing the sea water to turning into steel. It was the same second as Du Yunji turning the sea water into nothingness, but it was actually on par with Du Yunji. As expected, you have ignited the 7th ray of divine flame. Du Yunji's expression became even more horrifying. This fist fight had already made Xiaoping'an's hairstyle completely different from that of 7 days ago. He roared, "Anyone who dares to help you in Sujing City is against me, and I will kill his entire clan in the future. Do you think others are like you, trash, who can advance by devouring other people's ancient gods' blood? You can survive today first." Xiaoping'an said. His body had already rushed out, and he got closer again. The distance between Du Yunji and Du Yunji was like fighting with a bayonet. The Emperor's divine fist took the initiative to attack, simplifying the complex. The ancient punch containing the secret of the 3-in-1 attack once again hit Du Yunji. The seawater around Xiaoping'an's fist, at this moment, all turned golden. Kill! Du Yunji's eyes were full of blood, and his body seemed to be burning with black flames. The black flames were like wild snakes dancing wildly, with teeth and claws spread out in a dazzling way. He shouted, turned a knife with his hand, and fiercely slashing towards Xiaoping'an's neck. The sound seemed to contain some kind of magic power, making the eardrums of many onlookers in the distance sting. Boom! The vacuum of the sea water expanded several times this time. The sand on the seabed was blown by the wind and exposed a rocky seabed. Even the seabed could not withstand the power of the two men. Large cracks and gullies appeared on the seabed, which was terrifying. The undersea tsunami rolled angrily in all directions, and the golden and black energy swirled like a tornado on the bottom of the sea. For many people, such a battle is completely unimaginable. It is like a confrontation between gods. Many of the people watching are also 7th-level gods. Seeing this scene, all of them turned a little pale. Because the two people fighting seemed to be completely above the 7th level. Moreover, the battle between the two is too terrifying and dangerous. Fighting at close range with spiritual skills is like fighting with bayonets. The weaker one will be infinitely magnified with one blow, and will be shattered to pieces in an instant. Every blow is a matter of life and death. How come Huan Longchen's body is so strong? He has just lit up the 7th ray of divine flames and can go head to head with Du Yunji, but his body can't. Then Du Yunji's 9-turn divine body is already small. How is that possible? In a place far away from the battlefield between the two of them, Emperor Jiao, who was hiding his figure, was extremely shocked when he saw the second close confrontation between the two sides. However, after the shock, an unspeakable feeling surged in Emperor Jiao's heart. He was very excited, because he had placed a heavy bet on Xiaoping'an, which was his hope for revenge. Seeing Xiaoping'an and Du Yunji fight harder and harder, the Jiao Emperor became more excited and had the pleasure of revenge. Your Majesty, the potential of that dragon cicada will probably exceed anyone's expectations. Bai Luo was right next to Jiao Emperor, staring at the terrifying battle in the distance. The shock in her heart was no less than that of Jiao Emperor. Although she had been in contact with Xiaoping'an several times, but she found that she was increasingly unclear about that man's details. If the situation becomes critical later, we have to ask Miss MaleProtagonist to take action. We cannot let young Master Cicada die here. Emperor Jiao said to MaleProtagonist, after this battle, I will do what I promised Miss MaleProtagonist. I will let Miss MaleProtagonist enter the Dragon God's cave once. The smile on MaleProtagonist's face was mysterious and playful. Your Majesty, don't worry. Among all the people, Du Yunji was the most shocked. Because of the second collision just now, his 9-turn divine body, which had been tempered to the 2nd level, was trembling from the terrifying power. The thousands of meridians, muscles, and blood vessels in his body were like tensing. The sound was roaring like tight strings, causing his heart to expand violently, and blood was already rolling uncontrollably in his chest, but Xiaoping'an seemed to be more relaxed than him. Xiaoping'an's body at this moment was completely different from when he first encountered Xiaoping'an in the Great Hall. If it can be explained that a top-level 6th-level god ignited the divine flame within 7 days, then within 7 days, a powerful god who had just ignited the seventh ray of divine flame to temper his divine body, tempered his body to the point where he could, it would be nonsense to fight against his own 9-turn divine body. Not to mention 7 days, even 7 years would be impossible. Even if Xuanhuan Chan has obtained the secret method of tempering the divine body, how could this Xuanhuan Chan achieve this in such a short period of time? Impossible. Du Yunji roared, his face completely distorted, and he rushed towards Xiaopinggan again, grabbing with both claws at the same time. It was still the same killing move with a bayonet, but it was more severe. This was a series of attacks. He never believed in his heart that Xiaopinggan, who had just advanced to the 7th level god, could really collide with his divine body. As soon as he took action, countless death energy wrapped around and danced on his claws, as if there were thousands of wronged souls were wailing in his hands, and countless miserable and crying faces were revealed in the surrounding sea water. Each of them opened their bloody mouths and all rushed towards Xiaopinggan. Boom boom boom. The terrifying collision has stirred up the sea water within 1,000 miles radius, and the collision and tearing of the huge energy field has completely changed the appearance of the sea area. Xiaopinggan just punched. Each punch was heavier, more majestic, and more powerful. Between heaven and earth, it seemed that only his fists were stretching. With each punch Xiaopinggan punched, in the void of the sea water, the lights and shadows of emperors who were as tall as mountains and had majestic faces condensed in the void. They raised their mountain-like fists and blasted towards Du Yunji and the thousands of ghost faces without even flinching. They are all head-to-head encounters, and there is blood. In a full 3 minutes, the terrifying explosion roared 36 times, and 36 waves of tsunamis generated from the bottom of the sea also spread and impacted the surroundings. The majesty and terrifying aura of the divine skills were everywhere. The entire sea area was filled, and even the spiritual energy and energy in the void were disturbed by the two men and divided into camps, looming in the sea area thousands of miles away like rotating yin and yang fish. After 36 head-to-head encounters, Xiaopinggan's body seemed to be getting stronger with each passing battle. He unexpectedly advanced instead of retreating. At the moment when Du Yunji's body was trembling and stagnant, Xiaopinggan punched out, and the huge fist mark melted into the sea water. The rising scorching sun directly punched Du Yunji onto the seabed, causing the seabed to shatter into a large crater like a meteorite impact. Countless lava spewed out from the bottom of the sea, boiling the sea water. The onlookers were immediately shocked. Golden Summoner. Author, Z.Y. Hu. Chapter 1134. For a moment, except for the sound of the boiling sea water, the entire sea area was quiet. Those onlookers could not believe the result. Xuanhuan Chan actually defeated Du Yunji. Where is Du Yunji? Everyone's eyes were turned to the crumbling seabed and the boiling and surging magma at the bottom of the sea. The rolling magma was cooled by the sea water and had solidified in large areas. The steaming water vapor permeated the entire water area, and large rocks were everywhere. Large and small rolling bubbles mixed the sea water, carrying countless minerals spewed out from the magma, turning the clear sea water into milk like milky white, mixed with those glued together, and the chaos and disorder continued to spread. The energy fluctuations were like curtains, blocking everyone's sight and thoughts. For almost half a minute, there was no movement on the ground. Is Du Yunji dead? Some of the strong men who were watching were secretly surprised. Xiaopinggan stood in the air, but the aura on his body did not relax at all. He just squinted and stared at the seabed that was gradually solidifying under his feet. No, Du Yunji did not die so easily. He was just hiding under the magma on the seabed. The Jiao Emperor's face, which had been watching the battlefield, suddenly changed slightly. He had already felt something. Under the magma, there was a streak of the stronger and stronger aura is gradually rising, becoming more and more terrifying. I feel the aura of an evil spirit level summoning technique is resurrecting. Maluo's eyes flashed with light, and his face gradually became a little solemn. Xuanhuan Chan, I admit, you surprised me today. You actually hurt me and forced me to use the secret method of the 9 transformation divine body to recover. You deserve my more serious treatment. At this moment, a gloomy voice the sound came from the ground, buzzing, and the entire seabed was shaking at this moment, becoming a prop to convey this sound. I crave your ancient god's blood even more now, your life is mine today. Hearing this voice, everyone onlookers felt a chill in their hearts. Not only was Du Yunji not dead, but judging from his breath, he seemed to be stronger. But at this moment, Xiaoping's contemptuous sneer dispelled the fear of Du Yunji in everyone's hearts. Du Yunji, after being beaten to the ground by me for a long time, you swallowed the blood that was about to spit out into your stomach. What you have been thinking about for a long time is how you can continue to pretend to be such a big deal in front of me and maintain your invincible reputation and ridiculous dignity. To be honest, you disappoint me so much, like a sissy, a powerful person who dares not face failure calmly. You are destined to be just garbage. Xiaoping's voice was suddenly suppressed. After hearing all the noises Yunji made, this fearless spirit was even more heartbreaking. Xiaoping's eyes became sharper and sharper, staring at the ground, with a relaxed tone. If you have any means, just use it. If I can hammer you to the ground once, I can hammer you to the ground a second time, so that you will never stand up in front of me. Du Yunji's voice suddenly became extremely angry and anxious, and he roared, I'm going to kill you, burning heaven demon prison, go and devour you. Following Du Yunji's roar, on the ground, in an instant, streaks of blood-red magma spurted out from under the seabed, rising into the sky and turning into terrifying pillars of fire. The seabed in an area of square kilometers suddenly shattered, and Du Yunji's figure was revealed on the seabed. Countless magma was boiling, changing the shape of various creatures. In just an instant, under Du Yunji's body, the sea of magma splits open, and a terrifying hell is breaking out bit by bit from the magma on the seabed, trying to descend on the sea area. At this moment, the entire sea area is like an earthquake coming, the sea water, the seabed, everything, they were all rumbling and trembling. The hell that Du Yunji summoned was filled with flames and the faces of painful creatures that were tormented, cut and burned by the flames. Billions of flame hands stretched out from the hell, bringing endless misery, despair, wailing, and pain, trying to drag the people outside into hell. This scene is extremely horrifying. Du Yunji is in the hell he summoned, like a terrifying hell devil. The hell that Du Yunji summoned was so terrifying that even many strong men watching the battle far away from the battlefield felt the terror and threat of Du Yunji's move at this moment. This is the secret method of summoning at the divine level. The secret method of summoning this divine skill is also blessed by the evil secret method practiced by Du Yunji himself. There is also a fusion of fire power at the level of divine skills. The burning heaven demon prison devours everything. According to legend, all gods must avoid its front. This is the burning heaven demon prison in Du Yunji. It swallows everything. Retreat quickly. Some strong men who were slightly closer to the battlefield fled away at this time, for fear of being involved in the hell summoned by Du Yunji. Everything that happened before my eyes was a long story, but it only happened in the blink of an eye. Just when everyone thought that Xiaoping would temporarily avoid the sharp edge of Du Yunji's move, the aura on Xiaoping's body also changed at this time. A powerful and sacred aura quickly expanded on Xiaoping, and a golden light came from Xiaoping's body, rose up, reaching the sky and the earth, connecting the 3 realms. Then in the sky of that sea area, billions of tons of seawater were expelled by an unimaginable divine power, and then a huge gate appeared on the seabed in the sky. The heavenly gate is made of gold and jade, so high that it cannot reach the top. Behind the heavenly gate, there are many palaces overlapping in the sky, and the lights and shadows of gods and men shuttle and fly in the mist-shrouded void. With the appearance of this heavenly gate, all kinds of flowers scattered from the sky, floating throughout the sea. Many people heard wonderful fairy music in their ears at this moment, and smelled an inexplicable aroma in their noses. If Du Yunji summoned hell, then what Xiaopingan summoned at this moment was heaven, where heaven and hell competed. As hell approached, from the Tianmen summoned by Xiaopingan, two gods with lightning like lightning flashing all over their bodies walked out of the Tianmen. The two gods had strong and resolute faces, with their upper bodies naked and exposed. The chest and muscles are as bulging as hills. The gods' eyes are as blazing as two scorching suns. There are several golden hoops on the wrists. There are giant snakes hanging on the ears of the god. The god just breathes out slightly, thousands of miles away. The wind and thunder stirred. The most exaggerated thing is that the hands of the two gods each hold a golden mountain. On one of the mountains is written the word Taihang in small seal script that is difficult for outsiders to understand, and on the other mountain is written in small seal script two words. This is Yu Gongyishan's god-level summoning technique that Xiaopingan mastered a long time ago. It was just a god-level summoning technique at the time. Over the years, it has quietly completed a powerful advancement and became a god-level summoning technique at the level of a spiritual skill. Although the name says it sounds a bit hard to pronounce, but this is indeed the most accurate expression, the summoning technique of God performed by the gods at the first level. Hell has been revealed in its entirety, with countless hands and flames reaching towards heaven and Xiaopingan in heaven. The two gods summoned by Xiaopingan raised their hands as Xiaopingan stretched out their fingers. Two mountains slammed into the burning heaven demon prison summoned by Du Yunji and Du Yunji from the sky. As soon as the two golden mountains of Taihang King's house fell, the surrounding sea water for thousands of miles was driven by the huge force and rolled up wildly. At this moment, the weaker demigods felt like they were in a whirlpool in the water. The fallen leaves will be involuntarily pulled towards the battlefield by a force. Those strong demigods who felt something was wrong didn't even think about it. They immediately used all their strength and flew back desperately. Such a confrontation is too terrifying, and has completely exceeded the power limit that the 7th level god can achieve. Boom! At the moment when golden light and red light intertwined and collided, the entire void was shaking. The sea water, seabed, and sky were shattered at this moment. The unimaginable energy flow and shock wave evolved into a huge expanding light ball, sweeping across the surrounding area. Everything within thousands of kilometers. Even Emperor Jiao and Mi Luo, who were watching from a distance, changed their expressions at the same time, and immediately used secret techniques to fly away. Thousands of kilometers away, Sujing City was shaking violently like an earthquake at this moment. Countless people in Sujing City looked at the ball of light appearing on the western horizon at this moment, and they all looked at each other in shock. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 1135. Just when the expanding light ball was wildly devouring everything in the surrounding sea area, the retreating Jiao Emperor, Mi Luo, and some powerful gods were shocked to discover that in the center of the battlefield, there are two black spots colliding with each other in the terrifying energy shock wave, fighting in the flames. Drum-like battle fluctuations and rumbling vibrations are still coming from the center of the war. Is that human being? No, such a powerful person is closer to the gods than to humans. In the central area of the battle, Du Yunji, who was once again bombarded under the seabed, flew out again. Half of his body's flesh and blood had turned into powder and dissipated when the two golden mountains of Taihang King's house crashed down. His body broken or cracked golden bones are clearly visible in many places. The hair on his head is gone and he has become completely bald. At this moment, Du Yunji is like half a skeleton painted with gold powder, which is particularly ugly. Horrifying, a ball of blood swirled around his body, and the dissipated flesh and blood on his body was growing crazily while being consumed. Even so, he was still fighting Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan's body was no worse injured than Du Yun. The terrifying force of the explosion had instantly carbonized all the skin on his body, turning his whole body into a pitch-black mass. The bones in Xiaopingan's hands, ribs, sternum and other places were similarly shattered, and his internal organs were also severely damaged. The spleen, kidneys, liver, and lungs showed varying degrees of rupture, all of which could make people so frightened and fearful. Even the Emperor Xiao, who had already advanced to the 8th level of God, did not dare to take action against him. It was definitely not without reason. Du Yunji himself was a humanoid killer that could frighten countless people. Xiaopingyan finally understood what Du Yunji had learned. Yunji is awesome. Xiaopingyan's body was actually more seriously injured than Du Yunji in this collision. However, Xiaopingyan's body's recovery ability is not just a little stronger than Du Yunji, but much stronger. The powerful effect of the heart of the ancient god of the eternal divine spring is once again reflected in Xiaopingyan. When Du Yunji's body was still exposed, the circle of completely carbonized skin on Xiaopingyan's body, who was fighting with Du Yunji, was already like black porcelain fragments, and large areas of Xiaopingyan's body were peeled off. It fell down, revealing the newly grown smooth porcelain white skin inside. The broken bones and injured organs in Xiaopingyan's body were repairing themselves at a terrifying speed. Before Du Yunji Xiaokeng's 9-turn divine body fully recovered, Xiaopingyan's body had already fully recovered. Not only did it not leave any scars, but it was even more resilient and tolerant than before, as if it had been strengthened. Impossible! Du Yunji roared, completely going crazy. Seeing that Xiaopingyan's body was so strong and could recover faster than him, this was also a major blow to him, because he didn't know how to do it at all. I believe that a person who was far behind him in realm just a few days ago can reach this point in just a few days. In Du Yunji's roar, the muscles and bones of his body suddenly expanded again. 3 feet of blood-red hair instantly grew on his originally bare head, flying all over the sky. Drops of blood flowed from his head. It flew out of the pores of the body, and then turned into demon heads covered with sharp teeth in the air. Tens of thousands of such heads, covering the sky and the sun, opened their bloody mouths and rushed towards Xiaopingyan, looking like he wanted to eat Xiaopingyan alive. Broken! Xiaopingyan roared and stepped forward. His momentum was like a sweeping wave. Xiaopingyan waved his arms, and the golden iron fist vibrated in the void. Each of his fingers was like the steel mountains condensed, and the terrifying power shook the void, causing the space to twist in the pure and explosive masculine power. The punch shadows turned into 10 punches, 10 fists turned into hundreds of fists, and hundreds of fists turned into 1,000 fists. They spread across the void and met the demon heads in the sky. Rumble! A series of lightning-like explosions exploded in the void one after another. The countless bloody mouths that rushed towards Xiaopingyan gradually vaporized and disappeared under Xiaopingyan's iron fist, like dark clouds in the sky. When encountering the gushing sunlight, not only that, the terrifying fist mark also passed through the blockade outside Du Yunji's body, and finally hit Du Yunji's back with a heavy blow. Du Yunji's reaction was extremely fast. Originally, the blow was aimed at his head. When he felt something was wrong, he turned his body and his whole body suddenly curled up into a ball in the air. The spine was curved into a big bow, surrounded by countless muscles. Xiaopingyan's blow finally landed on his deliberately arched back. As Du Yunji's curved spine bounced, most of the force, he removed it, but the remaining power still slapped Du Yunji for the 3rd time until he vomited blood, and his whole body was blasted to the seabed again like a projectile. This time, Xiaopingyan did not wait for Du Yunji to fly up, but took advantage of the victory to pursue him. His momentum was like breaking a bamboo, his body was like an arrow leaving the string, like lightning falling from the sky, and like an eagle fighting its prey. He locked Du Yun with a secret method. Gigi followed Du Yunji's body and rushed into the magma on the seabed. The terrifying golden iron fist was like a life-killing talisman, punching out. The huge rocky land and plates on the seabed were constantly lifting, falling, and breaking like a seesaw under Xiaopingyan's fist. Countless magmas spewed out again, shaping a new seabed terrain, just like gods and demons fighting for hegemony and destruction in ancient times. Heaven destroys earth. I said, I can hammer you to the ground once, and I can hammer you to the ground again a second time, a third time. Xiaopinggan's voice sounded coldly in Du Yunji's ears, that is, killing people. Yezuxin, following his words, his iron fist and Du Yunji's iron fist collided fiercely again. The terrifying power caused Du Yunji's golden humerus, which was still exposed on both arms, to break again and be injured again. Bones were also seen on Xiaopinggan's fists, golden blood flowed, and large areas of skin on his arms exploded. Both of them were injured, and their powerful divine bodies allowed them to recover quickly from the injuries. However, Xiaopinggan recovered much faster than Du Yun. Such a slight advantage was the result of the gradual accumulation of advantages in the uninterrupted battle. It's just that Du Yunji's injuries never seemed to completely heal, and they tended to get worse, while Xiaopinggan fought more and more bravely, and the balance of victory was clearly tilting towards Xiaopinggan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1136. Du Yunji is already showing signs of fatigue. His divine body is showing more and more flaws. He has been completely suppressed by the dragon cicada in the magma sea under the seabed. He had just retreated 100 miles to avoid that Xuanhuan, who was in a terrifying shockwave, looked at the battle under the seabed in the distance. He couldn't help but sucked in a breath of cold air again, with a strange look in his eyes. What kind of divine body has Huan Longchan cultivated? It can actually compete with Du Yunji's 9-turn divine body. The confrontation lasted for such a long time without distinction. For a strong man of Jiao Huang's level, even if he is hundreds of kilometers away, he still has a secret method that can clearly see the battle under the seabed. Young Master Cicada's divine body is really hard to see through. Bai Luo's eyes also carried a hint of confusion and an unspeakable strange look. Master Cicada's divine body seems to be slightly inferior to Du Yunji's body in terms of defense. However, the resilience of Master Cicada's divine body is far superior to Du Yunji's. Ren Maluo was extremely knowledgeable and had a vicious eye, and it was impossible for her to see the mystery of Xiaopinggan's body at this moment. The terrifying recovery properties of Huan Longchan's divine body reminded me of the word immortal in the legendary secret book, the Immortality Sutra of Ancient Gods, that he cultivated. Only Huan Longchan mastered the Ancient Gods Immortality Sutra. Maybe this it is the secret method of the divine body in the Ancient Gods Immortality Scripture. After this battle, the Ancient Gods Immortality Scripture will probably become famous. Emperor Jiao felt that he should have found the answer. Your Majesty's words make sense. At this moment, in the battle under the seabed, one of Du Yunji's arms was torn off by Xiaopinggan alive. Du Yunji, who was vomiting blood, was punched by Xiaopinggan again into the boiling magma underground. Among them, he looked extremely weak. Then Du Yunji is going to be defeated. The expression on Emperor Jiao's face changed. His eyes lit up, and he suddenly became excited. In his excited eyes, there was even a hint of cold murderous intent towards Du Yunji. Emperor Jiao already hated him to the core and wished he could get rid of him as soon as possible. Mi Luo seemed even calmer. Du Yunji definitely has a backup plan. Your Majesty, don't forget why Du Yunji came to your Majesty. Even if he didn't get the Gigza divine iron from your Majesty, he wouldn't be left with nothing. Yunji's whereabouts over the years have been quite mysterious. He may be looking for materials to refine the natal artifact. I guess he may. Before Biluo finished speaking, a black light pillar suddenly rose from the seabed in the distance. In the black light, there was a great terror, which was breathtaking and vague. A hint of the divine aura that overcame all things was looming, like a sealed ancient ferocious beast opening its bloody eyes. The sea water within 1,000 miles shook and swirled, and was repelled by this terrifying aura. As soon as some half-length strong men who had just stopped felt the aura, they instantly started to fight with each other. Their hearts were filled with fear, as if they were facing an imminent disaster. They were in constant panic. Consciously or unconsciously, they were forced to fly towards the distance again by the aura. Go! The divine weapon of destiny. Jiao Emperor had already shouted. Huan Chan, you forced me. Du Yunji's figure slowly floated up from the magma, black light enveloped his body, and a ferocious huge black scythe appeared in his hand. The arm that Xiaopinggan had just torn apart was recovering at a terrifying speed, and the aura on his body became stronger than before. Xiaopinggan's eyes were fixed on the huge black scythe in Du Yunji's hand. From the scythe, Xiaopinggan also felt the aura of terror, but this terror did not come from his heart, but from that scythe. The power generated by the sickle when it resonates with the avenue of heaven and earth. Do you want to use terror to ascend to the throne and become the god of terror? Xiaopinggan did not rush forward to fight head-on. Instead, he said as he flew back, widening the distance between him and Du Yunji. No matter how powerful the artifact is, we'll all follow such a simple truth. The further away from it, the smaller the damage of the artifact will be. This is the only choice left by the law of time and space for people without artifacts to avoid the edge of artifacts. Before knowing the opponent's trump card, in such a battle, it is a wise choice to quickly distance yourself from the opponent while having a complete advantage. Seeing Xiaopinggan flying back, Du Yunji rushed towards Xiaopinggan with the huge scythe in his hand. A cruel and vicious smile appeared on Du Yunji's face again. You may have vision, but this is you. My last words, die under my scythe of terror. As they spoke, the two of them flew out from under the seabed like two burning cannonballs, one after another. Xiaopinggan was in front, and Du Yunji followed closely behind. Seeing Xiaopinggan's the speed suddenly increased, Du Yunji gritted his teeth, and waved the black sickle in his hand at Xiaopinggan, who was flying tens of thousands of meters away. The black light cut through the void, like a black moon, with an aura of unspeakable terror and violence. Like a ferocious beast out of its cage, it suddenly rushed to Xiaopinggan's side and moved Xiaopinggan's body without any hindrance. It was cut in the air, and in the black flames, Xiaopinggan's body was instantly turned into ashes. A cruel smile appeared on Du Yunji's face just now, but the next second, his cruel smile disappeared. No, Huan Chan could not be killed by him so easily, but the one he just killed was Huan Cicada. What's going on? Haha, it's true that this is your natal artifact, but I'm afraid you haven't completely refined this natal artifact yet. This is just an incomplete natal artifact that can only exert a small part of its power. And if you use this thing now, you must have price. If this thing had no price and was so useful, you would never wait to take it out now, right? Xiaopinggan appeared again, in the other direction, tens of thousands of meters away from Du Yunji, with a mocking smile on his face. Looking at Du Yunji, the dragon cicada that had just been killed looked like another person. What kind of secret technique are you talking about? Du Yunji roared angrily, somewhat rudely. You guess. Illusion, this is the divine skill of illusion. I almost fell into your trap. You guessed it right, I am an illusion. The newly appeared Xiaopinggan smiled and punched Du Yunji. The mountain-like giant fist appeared directly on Du Yunji's head, shaking the void, and aimed at his head slammed down. When the iron fist came, Du Yunji felt something was wrong. This was not an illusion, but a real powerful attack. He roared and raised the huge black sickle in his hand. With a loud bang of boom, Du Yunji was knocked down several hundred meters from the sky. He was not injured while holding his natal artifact, but the blow made his eyes blood red. He faced Xiaopinggan. With a roar, he slashed out with another sickle. The black moon appeared next to Xiaopinggan again, easily cutting Xiaopinggan into pieces. That's right, come on, let's continue and see how many illusions you can kill. Another Xiaopinggan appeared tens of thousands of meters away in another direction, facing Du Yunji, and punched to kill him again. Du Yunji seemed to be going crazy. After confirming that the attack was real, he kept waving the terrifying sickle in his hand. Black moons flew out one by one. In just a moment, there were already more than 10 Xiaoping'an beheaded by him. Such a battle left countless onlookers dumbfounded. Du Yunji's ability to take out the unfinished divine weapon was already scary enough. His majesty and aura were unmatched by anyone, but Huan Longchan didn't know what secret technique he had mastered, and he could actually do it. He had countless clones, teasing Du Yunji, who was holding his natal artifact, in the palm of his hand, showing off his other fighting skills besides force. After Du Yunji killed the 17th Xiaoping'an in a row, even people from a distance could see the changes on his body. First, his hair turned white rapidly, and then the skin on his body turned white. Bits of relaxation and loss of luster, and more wrinkles appeared on Du Yunji's face and hands. In just a moment, Du Yunji seemed to have aged hundreds of years, transforming from a strong young man he became senile, and the speed of waving the sickle in his hand also slowed down, and he began to become hesitant, even unable to get off the horse. Huan Longchan, you coward, come out and fight me to the death if you have the guts. After frantically killing another Xiaoping'an, Du Yunji even had large age spots on his wrinkled face, and his back he also became hunched up, gloomy and ugly. Okay, I'm here. Another Xiaoping'an appeared and rushed directly towards Du Yunji. When Du Yunji wanted to swing the terrifying sickle in his hand, he hesitated slightly, and then that Xiaoping'an appeared. Ping'an rushed to Du Yunji's side, and Du Yunji kicked him out. The figure of Xiaoping'an, who was rushing towards him, shattered and dissipated, turning into a 3-foot-tall red and black egg covered with strange runes. The shape appeared next to Du Yunji. Du Yunji was stunned for a moment when he saw this thing so close, but the next second, his expression changed drastically and he wanted to fly away. However, no matter how fast he was, he couldn't compare to the thing in front of him. The void divine thunder that revealed its true face exploded violently, and the rapidly expanding white ball of light, which represented tragedy and annihilation, immediately enveloped Du Yunji, making it inevitable for Du Yunji to avoid it. This is not an ordinary void divine thunder, but a big thing that can cause huge damage to the powerful gods. Even Xuanhuan and Maluo, who were hundreds of miles away, heard Du Yunji, who was shrouded in void divine thunder, let out a roar of great anger. Huan Longchan, you! No one knew what happened within the aperture of the void divine thunder explosion. Only a few strong men felt that there seemed to be an unimaginable terrifying aura coming within the void divine thunder in an instant. The fleeting and hidden spatial fluctuations. When the void divine thunder completely disappeared, Du Yunji disappeared in the sea area. Only Huan Longchan stood in the sea area, playing with Du Yunji's natal artifact, the Scythe of Terror. Golden Summoner. Author, Zy. Chapter 1137. It seems that Summoner is the same. There is a powerful me, and it still works in critical situations. The rules of the game in the universe are very similar. Xiaoping'an muttered to himself softly. He squinted his eyes and wore a mask on his face. With a playful smile, he played with Yunji's natal artifact in his hand. Just now, at the most important moment, when Xiaoping'an wanted to pursue the victory and kill Du Yunji, a special tattoo on Du Yunji, who had been seriously injured by the void divine thunder, was suddenly activated. The tattoo was a strange semicircular arch was tattooed on Du Yunji's chest. Xiaoping'an had not noticed the specialness of that tattoo before, but the tattoo instantly tore a space channel in the area covered by the void divine thunder, and forcefully teleport Du Yunji away. That tattoo should have been left by Du Yunji's father Du Zhongtian using a special secret method. The strong man who left the tattoo unabashedly displayed the powerful power of his 11th level god the moment the tattoo was activated. There is also a hint of warning. Xiaoping'an just seized the opportunity when Du Yunji left, and used the heaven-stealing technique to steal the natal magical weapon that Du Yunji had just wanted to put away, so Du Yunji made that angry cry at the end. Roar. Du Yunji's divine weapon is called the Scythe of Terror. It doesn't look big, and Xiaopinggan can pick it up easily. In fact, the Scythe of Terror is as heavy as a mountain peak, weighing tens of thousands of tons. Use the Doomsday Dragon vines as the handle, then fuse and refine it with the blood of the fallen gods, and finally use the core of the Death Star to refine it into the blade, inject the soul of the soul into it for sacrifice, and if you add the sacred iron of the ruins, the entire Scythe of Terror will be completely reshaped. After fusion, the influence of the Doomsday Dragon vine and the Death Star core is completely contained within the blade body. The embryonic body of this natal artifact has basically taken shape. When used, that guy will no longer be sacrificed at the expense of his life force. Come and drive, this guy is very ambitious, he really wants to become the god of terror. Looking at the terrifying sickle in his hand, with Xiaopingyan's vicious eyes and knowledge, he knew almost instantly why Du Yunji didn't take out this divine weapon before, and why he wanted to find the Jiao Emperor for the Return to Ruins divine iron. Although Du Yunji ran away, his divine weapon fell into Xiaopingyan's hands. Du Yunji, do you think you can run away? There is a trace of your natal soul in your natal artifact. He, it is difficult for others to take out your natal soul. Basically, impossible, but you brought it to me yourself, so don't blame me for being rude. Do you think you can run away? Let's see how I deal with you. Thinking of this, the weird smile on Xiaopingyan's face and eyes appeared at this moment. Only when he saw someone flying quickly from a distance, did Xiaopingyan calm down the smile on his face and at the same time put Du Yunji's life in danger. The artifact was suddenly included in his secret mandala. The first one to fly over at this time was naturally Maluo. I didn't expect Mr. Cicada to be so secretive. He just lit up the 7 rays of divine flames and forced Du Yunji to use the escape skills his father gave him. You also took away the divine weapon of his life and severely damaged his vitality. On the list of gods in this spiritual wilderness secret realm, I am afraid that Mr. Cicada's name will be added today. Bai Luo's long skirt fluttered like a fairy, even in this land that has completely changed the landscape and is a messy sea area with no grass growing everywhere. Her appearance also made Xiaopingyan feel that the surrounding sea suddenly lit up. As for the bang of conferred gods mentioned by Luo, it is the content manifested on the most mysterious and unpredictable steel of conferred gods in the mysterious realm of spiritual desolation. That steel of conferred gods was transformed from the skull of an ancient god hundreds of millions of years ago. A special place. Since the day it was discovered, over the past tens of thousands of years, the conferred god monument has automatically displayed the peerless geniuses, top powerhouses, and superpowers who have ignited more than 7 rays of divine flames in the secret realm of the spirit wilderness. Names, and almost everyone behind these names has terrifying strength far beyond the same level and the possibility of becoming a god. Therefore, the words on the monument to the gods are called the list of gods. The list of gods represents the top small circle in the secret realm of the spirit wilderness. Huan Longchan was also famous before, but because he has not ignited the 7th ray of divine flame, he has never entered the list of gods. But this time, he was in full view of everyone. Defeating Du Yunji and being on the list of gods is definitely expected, because Du Yunji is a figure on the list of gods. Fame and wealth are just external things, nothing important. Xiaopingyan returned to his indifferent expression, whether I am on the list of gods or not is not important to me. You may think that fame, wealth, and the list of gods are not important, but I guess Du Zhongtian may not think so, especially since you stepped on his son to get on the list. If you want to meet Du Zhongtian in the future, be careful. Although this person has not shown up for a long time, but maybe he will jump out to stand up for his son at some point, Luo said meaningfully. Xiaopingyan frowned slightly. Are people at Du Zhongtian's level so shameless? Face is something that mortals like, but the people on the list of gods only have a fight between life and death. There is no point in facing the dead, but being a god is the biggest face in the world. Xiaopinggan rubbed his face. Listen to what you said, the trouble I caused today is not small. That's true, but don't pretend to be pitiful in front of me. Bai Luo rolled his eyes at Xiaopinggan. I think you have been mentally prepared for this, otherwise you wouldn't be so cruel to Du Yunji. Hot, you even took away the sacred weapon that people use as a face. By the way, the secret method you just used was a bit special. It didn't feel like it was an illusion. It could kill people. If it wasn't an illusion, you deceived Du Yunji. You can't even do anything to his divine weapon. Xiaopinggan laughed loudly and looked at the sky. There is no secret method, it's just an illusion. In front of Miss Maluo, I won't pretend to be a bigot. Stingy, Biluo wrinkled his nose, then rolled his eyes and stretched out his hand. This is the first time that Du Yunji's divine weapon has appeared. Lend it to me for a look. This time, Xiaopinggan took out the scythe of terror generously and handed it directly to Maluo. Maluo lightly took the tens of thousands of tons of terrifying sickle, held it in his hand and looked at it carefully, then closed his eyes for a moment. His long eyelashes trembled slightly, as if he was feeling something. It was enough. A minute later, she opened her eyes, returned the scythe of terror to Xiaopinggan, and said solemnly, "Thank you." The two of them have a tacit understanding. In fact, at their level of cultivation, the so-called taking a look is not just a look. A real master can definitely tell a lot of information from Du Yunji's natal artifact. Du Yunji's level of cultivation, traces of various secret techniques he has mastered, important information such as the process and resource consumption of refining the natal artifact, as well as the path he wants to take in the future to become a god, can all be seen from the natal artifact. Get some clues. Xiaopinggan's willingness to take out this natal artifact was actually sharing the key information about Du Yunji with Bai Luo. You're welcome. Xiaopinggan took it and put the scythe of terror away again. When I flew here just now, I saw you holding Du Yunji's natal artifact, and the smile on your face seemed a little evil. Maluo blinked. Ahem, something is evil. Miss Maluo, you are definitely wrong. I was smiling happily. Du Yunji's divine weapon became my trophy. Everyone would be happy. Xiaopinggan said seriously. Really? Maluo looked at Xiaopinggan suspiciously. I'm going back to Su capital. Will Miss Maluo go back with me? Xiaopinggan asked. Of course, let's go. Bai Luo smiled softly and changed the subject. By the way, Emperor Jiao also asked me to tell you, please have time to come to the imperial court of Jiaoren to talk. Bai Luo winked. Eyes, there is something good. Su Jingcheng looked no different from when Xiaopinggan left before. However, when Xiaopinggan returned to Su Jingcheng again, from the moment he stepped into the city gate, he once again felt what it means to be under the spotlight and the eyes of those around him. Respectful and fearful, and also fawning. Wherever his gaze went, those who looked at him either avoided with a guilty conscience, or had fawning smiles on their faces. Xiaopinggan had just arrived at his previous residence, Mingyuan Building, when he saw the shopkeeper of Mingyuan Building running over with a smile on his face. Young Master Cicada, welcome, we have just moved you to our place. The best Tianxing Yuan, as long as Mr. Cicada comes in the future, all fees here are free, the yard has been renovated, and Mr. Cicada is welcome to visit. As soon as Xiaopinggan arrived at Tianxing Courtyard, someone sent several generous gifts to apologize. The people who gave the gifts were the first few talented people who looked at Xiaopinggan in the Jiaran Imperial Court that day. They were afraid that Xiaopinggan would hold a grudge. Golden Summoner. Author, Z.Y. Hu. Chapter 1138. This is how a super strong person is treated. I didn't expect that I would gain something like this after the battle with Du Yunji. If I had known they were so diligent, I might as well have told them to give me more world beads. Xiaopinggan looked at it. The gifts piled in front of him couldn't help but reveal a self-deprecating smile on his face, and he shook his head slightly. The thing placed in front of him was just 3 mineral types from the divine crystal mine. These 3 mineral types, added together, could add 4,000 points of divine power to his secret mandala every month. As a gift, the amount of minerals is enough. In addition to the minerals from the Shenjing mine, there are 2 other generous gifts. One generous gift is a precious undersea treasure, the ancient Tridacna orb. This ancient Tridacna orb is as big as a fist and flashes in the orb. Shining like a rainbow, this ancient Tridacna orb has 2 major functions. One is the power to nourish the human soul, and the other is the ability to detoxify all kinds of poisons. In addition to the ancient Tridacna orb, there was also a generous gift, which was the Gigzu divine iron that Du Yunji had wanted to beg from Jiao Emperor before. The piece of Gigzu divine iron given as a gift is only the size of a brick. It is so dark that it is inconspicuous. But if you look closely, you will find that the black color of the Gigzu divine iron is so heart-stopping that it seems to be able to obscure the surrounding people. The light is swallowed and absorbed. This Gigzu divine iron looks very heavy, but when you hold it in your hand, you find that this thing is light and a bit nihilistic. It only weighs an ordinary piece of wood of the same volume. Put this piece of Gigzu divine iron. If you listen carefully to your ears, you will hear waves of waves coming from the Gigzu divine iron, but if you inject a little divine power into it, the weight and color of the Gigzu divine body will change. Until now, Xiaopingyan didn't know the specific names of those talents, and he never thought about retaliating or causing trouble for them, but they probably saw the battle between him and Du Yunji just now, and I was frightened and worried that I would be repaid by being petty, so I hurriedly came to show my kindness. Now that the things had been delivered, Xiaopingyan was not polite. With a wave of his hand, he received all the things into his secret mandala. This Tianxingyuan covers an area of more than 50 acres and is extremely gorgeous. There are special sentries and guards outside the whole yard, as well as formations to protect the yard. And inside the yard, there is also a unique cave that can satisfy the various needs of a strong person at Xiaopingyan's level. Special needs. Xiaopingyan, who had put away the gifts, had just arrived outside the training tower where the secret room of Tianxingyuan was located when he received another notification from the shopkeeper of Mingyuan building. Mr. Cicada, many people in Su capital have sent Mr. Cicada invitations and greetings. I have received more than 30 copies in a short time. How should I deal with these greetings and greetings? No, let's burn it. Xiaopingyan didn't bother to ask who the people who sent the greeting cards were. Anyway, there was a high probability that they were some people who wanted to take advantage of him. There was no need to waste time. He directly replied, "Oh my God. The courtyard is closed to thank guests, I will stay in seclusion for a few days." "Okay, Mr. Cicada, please rest assured, I will never let anyone disturb Mr. Cicada." After the shopkeeper left, the outside of Tianxingyuan was already shrouded in a layer of glazed formation, and Xiaopingyan entered the training tower and came to the secret room of the training tower. Winning the battle with Du Yunji did not make Xiaopingyan relax. He still remembered the reminder from Yandeolo that this trip to Sujing was the beginning of a raging war. Unknown dangers and battles may come at any time. Even the red-eyed Du Yunji's father may appear in front of him at any time, so he cannot relax, but must always be prepared to face new dangers and battles. The god of Fortune Boy had already visited Tianxingyuan several times and found no problems. Xiaopingyan was relieved to arrange the array in the secret room, summoned 2 guardians, and then took out his magic weapon from Du Yunji. The Scythe of Terror and more things were captured in his hand, including various array discs, rare metals, many precious gems, crystals, strange magic weapons, and even some bones of the remains of ancient gods. Du Yunji, do you think you can run away? A scum like you is too dangerous, so don't blame me for using tricks. Don't you want to devour my ancient god's blood store? The two of us will let's see who will fall into whose hands. Xiaopingan said to himself, a trace of evil flashed in his eyes, and then waved his hand, and a strange cubic black gem floated on Xiaopingan's hand. Xiaopingan he pinched it with his fingers, and directly used his fingers to write strange runes on the gemstone that were twisted and weird like ghost faces. In less than a minute, there was a strange ghost face rune on each of the 6 faces of the gem, and then Xiaopingan started to attract the second black gem. At the beginning, Xiaopingan was not very fast, and it was his first time doing this job. But gradually, Xiaopingan became more and more proficient, and the things in the secret room appeared one by one in Xiaopingan's mind. The appearance of the hands also changed piece by piece. Just 3 days later, the style in the secret room of the training tower changed drastically and completely changed. A strange altar full of strange aura and surrounded by black ghost-faced runes appeared in the middle of the secret room. In the center of the altar was a 13-story crystal tower. At the top of the crystal tower was a piece of the ancient god's treasure. Surrounding the remains of the crystal tower were a total of 360 lamps flashing with a gloomy green light, decorated with various black soul gems engraved with strange runes. The dark wind howled inside the altar, and there were many ghosts and shadows. The 360 lights corresponded to the 360 stars in distant time and space. The projections of the 360 stars also appeared above the altar, each exuding a ghostly light. Cold light. Xiaopingan was barefoot, with strange runes painted on his face, jumping around the 360 lights, making high and low whistling sounds that were difficult for ordinary people to understand, and holding a crystal in his hand. Skulls, constantly waving around, like wizards dancing to the gods. At this moment, Du Yunji's terrifying sickle was floating on the top of the altar crystal tower, shrouded in a pale green light. Next to Du Yunji's terrifying sickle, there was a height less than a foot. A black humanoid puppet with arms and legs and a vague face was also floating with the scythe of terror. Following Xiaopingan's actions, 3 small red and 7 blue light groups, like colorful fireflies, floated out from the scythe of terror and floated in the void for less than a few seconds. The 3 small red and 7 blue bald heads were all integrated into the black humanoid puppet. It's strange to say that as those small light groups blended in, the face of the black humanoid puppet, which was originally blurry, slowly became vivid and gradually turned into Du Yunji's appearance, floating around in the air. A few hours later, all the altars in the secret room disappeared, and the secret room returned to its previous appearance without any trace of what it had been like before. On Xiaopingan's hand, there was an extra one that looked exactly like Du Yunji. Human puppet. Looking at the human puppet, Xiaopingan chuckled, "Small, if you still show your teeth in front of me in the future, let me try the power of this ancient witchcraft forbidden god puppet. You can become the first forbidden god puppet I make. This it's your honor. If I die in the future, you will be the first one to support me. Even if your father comes, so what?" After saying that, Xiaopingan pointed and flicked the humanoid puppet's head, laughing loudly. A mysterious place far away from the Gigza domain. Ah! Du Yunji, who was sitting cross-legged in the secret room to recover from his injuries, suddenly screamed. He held his head and fell down from the jade bed where he was meditating. He was sweating profusely, his face was pale, and he opened his mouth, a mouthful of blood spat out from his mouth. "Master, what's wrong?" With a bang, the door of the secret room was suddenly blasted open and turned into pieces. A man as strong as a mountain with a face full of ferocious scars rushed in and quickly helped Du Yunji up. Du Yunji released his hand from his head. He panted heavily and shook his head. His brows were knitted into a ball. His body was shaking a little, but he still stood up with difficulty. "It's nothing, it's probably due to the injury, I almost went crazy just now, and the evil spirit rushed into my brain." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1139. Xiaopinggan stayed in the secret room for a full month in retreat this time. During this month, apart from refining Du Yunji's forbidden god puppet, Xiaopinggan spent most of the remaining time reviewing the battle with Du Yunji. For Xiaopinggan, that battle was full of thrills and variables. Du Yunji was indeed a qualified opponent and enemy. Such an opponent and enemy was like a close friend, something that could only be met but not sought. In the battle, Xiaopinggan's various secret techniques and spiritual skills, including his Mingwangwujian divine body, were consolidated and improved to varying degrees in actual combat. Especially for Mingwangwujian divine body, in addition to active cultivation, in such fierce battles and collisions, this secret method will be like steel that has been tempered and forged, and the state of the secret method will also improve accordingly. This is Xiaopinggan favorite. In addition, during this month, Xiaopinggan also did one more thing, which was to refine Du Yunji's Scythe of Terror, and then use the precious materials of the Scythe of Terror to treat the people in the secret mandala. Little one has undergone a material upgrade and strengthening. After doing this, it was equivalent to completely absorbing the benefits of this battle. A month had almost passed. Xiaopinggan felt that his strength and life-saving methods had improved unknowingly, and he was full of energy. The pearls of wisdom were rolling, so he left the seclusion, left the secret room, and visited Emperor Jiao. Luo had previously reported that Emperor Jiao invited Xiaopinggan to come to the emperor's court to talk about what might be good for him. Due to circumstances and reasons, Xiaopinggan would naturally pay a visit. If Emperor Jiao hadn't helped provide the secret this time, building the tower and the outcome of the battle with Du Yunji may be another matter. When Xiaopinggan came to Jiao Palace this time, he did not alert anyone. Even the shopkeeper of Mingyuan building did not know that Xiaopinggan had quietly left Tianxin courtyard. When Xiaopinggan came to Jiao Palace silently, he just after feeling it for a while, I could already sense where the Jiao Emperor was. As a Jiao Emperor who could ignite the 9 rays of divine flames and become a god at any time, the aura of the Jiao Emperor were so strong that it was like a scorching hot tower. The volcano is also like a huge signal tower. For a strong man like Xiaopinggan, he can feel the presence of the Jiao Emperor even hundreds of kilometers away with his eyes closed. Xiaopinggan didn't say much, but quietly released a trace of his own aura, just like a guest knocking on the door when visiting the host, telling Jiao Emperor that he had arrived. Sure enough, Xiaopinggan's breath had just calmed down when the voice of Emperor Jiao was heard in his ears. "Is Master Cicada here?" The Jiao Emperor's voice rang directly in Xiaopinggan's consciousness. This was not a sound transmission, but a higher-level method of transmitting messages that only 9th-level gods could master. This method, in fact, already like a god, the forbidden air formation above the Jiaoran Imperial Court will open a passage for young Master Cicada. Please come directly to the Sea View Pavilion in the Imperial Garden behind the Imperial Court, young Master Cicada. As soon as the Jiao Emperor finished speaking, Xiaopinggan felt that a passage had indeed appeared in the forbidden air formation above the Jiaoran Imperial Court. This should be a special courtesy that the Jiaoran Imperial Court could give. Of course, ordinary people had to go to the palace honestly. When he entered the door, the other party was so polite. He did not hesitate to be pretentious. He jumped directly into the air, passed through the forbidden air formation, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived at the royal garden on the back hill of Jiaoran Imperial Court. In a beautiful pavilion halfway up the mountain behind the Jiaoran Imperial Court, the Jiao Emperor was drinking in the pavilion. Besides the Jiao Emperor, Bai Luo was also here. Xiaopinggan's body shape changed and he landed directly outside the pavilion. "Ha ha ha, it's rare for Mr. Cicada to come here. Today we just happened to have a taste of the fine wine secretly stored in the Jiaoran Imperial Court. How about it, the Jiao Emperor looked very happy and directly invited Xiaopinggan to sit in the pavilion. Bai Luo covered her mouth and chuckled, glanced at Xiaopinggan, and then looked at Jiao Emperor. What do you think? I'll tell you that Mr. Cicada will definitely come today. Ha ha ha, Miss Maluo is really clever. This glass of wine belongs to me. Emperor Jiao laughed loudly, picked up the wine glass on the table, drank it all in one gulp, and then looked at Xiaopinggan. Miss Maluo came just now. Visit, Miss Maluo said that you will definitely come out of seclusion today to visit, and I also bet Miss Maluo on a glass of wine, but I didn't expect that Miss Maluo guessed it. How did Miss Maluo know that I would be out of seclusion today and come to visit His Majesty? Xiaopinggan was shocked, but asked calmly on the surface. It is difficult for ordinary people to divine his own whereabouts. Almost all divination methods will be ineffective on him. Although Biluo divines only small things such as the day he left seclusion and his whereabouts in the Su capital city, this is enough to make him divination. Xiaopinggan felt how powerful this woman was. For a powerful person like God, it was definitely not a small matter for her to be able to divine her whereabouts. Speaking of divination, Xiaopinggan suddenly remembered the information about entering the Yuanji temple. It is said that only those with powerful divination skills can have an advantage in entering the Yuanji temple. Could it be that Biluo was also aiming at Yuanji temple? From the temple. Don't be nervous, you are such a narrow-minded man. Maluo rolled his eyes at Xiaopinggan charmingly. I wanted to divine you, but I found that I couldn't divine it at all. It seems that you still have many secrets, so I turned. As for the divination, I wanted to see when I could see you again. Who knew that just after the divination, my heart surged, and I thought of the scene when I met you in the Jiaran imperial court that day, so I knew you would. How about I come out of seclusion to visit His Majesty today? Don't worry. Xiaopinggan was slightly stunned after hearing this explanation. This Maluo had met him again in the Su capital city and knew where he was in retreat. At the same time, he knew that Emperor Jiao had invited him. When these conditions were met, if she turned around and divined herself, it was indeed possible that her whereabouts could not be divined. Emperor Jiao looked at Xiaopinggan and then at Maluo. His eyes suddenly became a little bit more ambiguous and gossipy. He laughed loudly. It's rare to be able to meet Miss Maluo and Mr. Chen in this imperial court today. Let's get together again. Come, let's have a drink together, and congratulate Mr. Cicada on being crowned a god. Xiaopinggan also raised his wine glass, glanced at Emperor Jiao, and said with profound meaning, the list of gods is dispensable to me. I have always had a clear distinction between grudges and grudges. I repay kindness with kindness and revenge with hatred. I am very grateful to everyone even though he escaped by chance this time. If I have a chance in the future, I will kill him, and I will remember those who helped me even more. Emperor Jiao narrowed his eyes slightly and glanced at Xiaopinggan. His smile was more profound and a little more gratifying. Some things were tacitly understood, but both of them understood in their hearts. Ha ha ha, I just like Mr. Cicada, a man with an open temperament. After putting down his wine glass, Emperor Jiao suddenly asked, Master Cicada, have you ever heard of the Jiao God's Cave in Gigzu Domain? Xiaopinggan's heart moved. The Dragon God's Cave that your Majesty is talking about is the legendary place where the first generation of Jiao gods who opened the Jiaoran imperial court in the history of the Gigzu territory achieved enlightenment and became a god. According to legend, there are people who can become gods in the Dragon Emperor's cave. Mystery: the strong man who enters the Dragon God's cave may encounter some opportunities to ignite the divine flame and become a god. The Jiao Emperor nodded, and his expression became serious. Except for the Jiao God, in the history of Gigzu, over the past countless thousands of years, there have been no less than 100 powerful men who have achieved the title of god in the Jiao God cave. So much. Maluo said, perhaps there is more. What your Majesty said is recorded by the Jiao people. In fact, there are many people who entered the Jiao God's cave and became gods. The Jiao people have no records. This is because those who can enter the Dragon God's Cave must have a minimum level of cultivation of 7th level gods. Many people who entered the God's Cave and became gods after entering the God's Cave were not in the God's Cave. Some of the people who entered the God's Cave are not known to the Emperor's court. Miss Malugo is right, this Dragon God's Cave is actually a blessed place in the Gigzu domain. The Dragon King nodded. Blessings and misfortunes go hand in hand. The Dragon King's cave is also a dangerous place for many people. Your Majesty just asked me what the Dragon God Cave means, Xiaopingan asked. I don't mean anything else, but I still have a few places to enter the God of God's Cave. I wonder if Mr. Cicada wants to enter the God of God's Cave to have a look. Golden Summoner. Author, Z.Y. Hu. Chapter 1140. Xiaopingan only stayed in the Jiaoran imperial court for less than an hour before saying goodbye and leaving. Mi Luo and Xiaopingan left together. The two of them flew out of the Jiaoran imperial court in the blink of an eye. Do you know what Jiao Emperor means? Mi Luo asked via voice transmission first. Du Yunji is not dead yet. Emperor Jiao's hatred is hard to eliminate, and he has not yet succeeded in his revenge. So if you give me more effort here, it can be regarded as encouragement and friendship. I have this consideration, but this is mainly the Jiao Emperor's investment in you. If the Jiao people want to survive in the Gigzu domain, if they don't be smart and make good friends with strong people from all sides, I am afraid that the Jiao people will be defeated soon. Being destroyed, especially since the Jiao people still control the access rights to the Dragon God's Cave. If the Jiao Emperor doesn't take the initiative to take out some of the God's scales, I'm afraid someone will come to trouble him every moment, Mi Luo said. So, the two of us should not be the only ones who can go to the God's Cave this time. The Emperor must have given away a lot of these God's scales over the years. The pass to enter the Jiao God's Cave was obtained there. It was a palm-sized cyan scale of the Jiao God. When held in the hand, it shone with a jade-colored luster. This scale was the one that the Jiao people used to have in the Jiao God's Cave. The thing left behind after the godlike dragon god sheds its scales. Only with this thing can one enter the Dragon God's Cave. There have been some changes in the God of God Cave recently, and it has shown signs that it can be entered again. The last time the Cave of the God of God was opened was 72 years ago, so there will be many people going to the God of God Cave this time, at least those who are famous on the list of gods. Many strong men with this surname will come. Is there any rule for the opening of the Dragon God's Cave? The opening of Jiaoshen Cave is irregular, but it has a lot to do with the changes in the space energy and spiritual energy in the Linghuang secret realm. In recent years, many secret caves in the Linghuang secret realm have been opened again. Historically, it is very likely that it is the precursor of the appearance of the Yuanji temple. Bai Luo glanced at Xiaopingan. Moreover, Du Yunji may also come. Except for the Jiao people, others can only get the Jiao God scales for a lifetime. After entering the Dragon God's Cave twice, the third time, even if he had the Dragon God's scales, he would not be able to enter. The last time Du Yunji entered the God's Dragon Cave, he probably gained nothing. His realm was stagnant. He would not miss this opportunity. Yes, this is his last chance to enter the Dragon God's Cave. If he misses this opportunity, he doesn't know when he will have the chance to enter again. Xiaopingan's eyes moved, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. That would be even better. Where do you want to go now? Since the Jiao God's Cave will be opened at any time, it is natural to go to the Jiao God's Cave now. It will take a lot of time on the way from the capital city to the Jiao God's Cave. Bai Luo smiled sweetly at Xiaopingan, like 100 flowers in bloom. Then let's go. I'm also planning to go to the Jiao God's Cave now. If you don't mind, we will just go together. My pleasure. The two of them didn't say anything more. They left the city directly from the north gate of Sujing City and came to the sea outside. With a wave of his hand, Xiaopingan summoned a huge cockroach fish that was more than 70 meters long. The body of the cockroach fish is ice blue, and its body shape is a bit like a dolphin. It is extremely smooth in the water, but this cockroach fish has a pair of huge wings that can be spread out in the water. As the cockroach fish moves, after being summoned, its wings moved slightly, and the surrounding sea water automatically rotated around the cockroach fish, which looked quite strange. Ah, it's the mythical beast of the cockroach fish. Someone summoned the beast of the cockroach fish. This cockroach fish is not small in size, and it is extremely eye-catching. As soon as this big fish was summoned, it immediately attracted the attention of the nearby monks, and someone immediately shouted, he shouted, looking a little excited. Ah, that person is Mr. Cicada. Others immediately recognized Xiaopingan. Miss Maluo, please. Xiaopingan ignored the looks of people around him and smiled slightly. Luo didn't say anything. He flew up directly to the back of the cockroach and sat cross-legged. Xiaopingan also came and sat down next to Luo. As soon as the two sat down, the cockroach shook its tail and spread its wings. The surrounding water flow swirled, and the body of the cockroach fish flew out like lightning in the water. This speed was incredibly fast, faster than the fastest alien beast in the Sea of Giza region. Twice as fast. This was also the first time that Xiaopingan summoned a cockroach. Xiaopingan discovered that the cockroach was really flying in the water, and the surrounding water was pushing it to fly. Sitting on the fish, in just a moment, the Sioux capital city had already disappeared from behind them. Maluo sat on the cockroach and kept her eyes closed. It was not until 5 hours after leaving Sioux capital that her eyes suddenly opened and she sent a message to Xiaopingan, with a hint of teasing in her tone, "How many enemies do you have?" Why was he being targeted just after leaving Sioux capital city? Xiaopingan also smiled slightly, then why not ask Miss Maluo to calculate, in how many days will this person who is staring at me take action? Maluo closed his eyes for a few seconds and then opened them again. We will have a disaster in 5 days, but this disaster shouldn't be a problem for you. There is no danger. 5 days later, when the cockroach fish carried Xiaopingan to an unfamiliar sea area, 4 void divine thunders exploded around the cockroach fish. At this moment, even the sea water in the sea area with a radius of thousands of miles turned into nothingness. The space of the entire sea area was distorted, and the burning light balls swept in from 4 directions, superimposing their power at the place where the fish was, reaching its peak. The fish, Xiaopingan, and Luo sitting on it, without any resistance, disappeared instantly in the ball of light. The 4 superimposed void divine thunders destroyed only an illusion. Half an hour after the explosion, just where the fish disappeared, Xiaopingan appeared in a flash of light and shadow, frowning slightly, and a few seconds later, Luo also appeared. How about it? Xiaopingan frowned slightly and shook his head. There is only one demon demigod, where is your side? Luo waved his hand and threw out a pile of metal fragments whose shape could no longer be seen, and then shook his head. The underwater flying boat is the blood god boat of the demon clan. It can melt into the water and become completely invisible. It is very fast, but the blood there are only 2 metal puppets in the Shenzhou, and there are no high-level demons. That demon demigod is just a scapegoat. A demigod doesn't have the guts to ambush a 7th-level god. Moreover, although these 4 void divine thunders are powerful, the person who takes action should know that the most they can do is hurt me. It is impossible to kill me, so. The two glanced at each other, and as soon as their eyes touched, there seemed to be a tacit understanding. Luo already knew what Xiaopingan wanted to say. So, there are 2 possibilities. One is that they just want to see if you can handle such an ambush, so as to speculate on your divination ability and prepare for dealing with you in the future. The other is that they want to delay your entry into the Jiao God Cave. Time, which one do you think is more likely? I think both are possible. How did you provoke the demons? His identity at the moment is Huan Longchan, and Huan Longchan's entanglement with the demon clan began with the Guisha war group, and during negotiations with two elders of the Lingxi family, he set up a trap to kill a god under the command of the demon god. The clone, Xiaoping'an, seemed to have grasped something as his thoughts moved slightly. I have wiped out battle groups controlled by the demons, ruined their good deeds, and even set up a trap to kill the clones of the demon gods. This may be their reason for dealing with me. The clone of the demon god, the expression on Maluo's face was slightly surprised, but in a blink of an eye, a smile appeared on his face. Since I can dispatch a clone to deal with you once, there will naturally be a second time. It seems that this time the trip to the Dragon God's cave will be very lively, and the other party will be unkind. I want to see what tricks they can play. Let's go. Xiaoping'an waved his hand and summoned the fish again. The two of them got on the fish and disappeared in the waters in the blink of an eye. It was not until more than 2 hours after the two left the sea area that a black air emerged from the underground of the sea area. In the sea, the black air condensed into an eye and looked in the direction where Xiaoping'an disappeared. Then the black energy merged into the water and disappeared in the blink of an eye. 6 days later, Xiaoping'an and Bai Luo had not yet arrived at the God of Gods Dragon Cave, but they had already heard the news that the God of Gods God had opened its doors and countless powerful men were swarming into the God of Gods cave.